Hey YouTube, coming up you with my series of what Pokemon you should prioritize to build for different leagues. So I already did Great League. A lot of you really like that. So I'm going to do one for Ultra League. And so what I do with this is I look at the core Ultra League, and then I look at if there's any other Ultra League leagues that are on and what the meta will look like there. And then one thing else I'm going to do differently is a lot of you asked, like, okay, I went over like the top like 20, 25 and prioritize those. But like, what about those outside of the top 50? Like, is there any worth building? So I will do that as well for the Ultra League. So first, Ultra League, I just went through the schedule. Ultra League is on 4 times this season. And then there's a specialty Ultra League Cup. So we are currently in the Ultra League and Psychic Cup right now. Ultra League is on again next week with a Great League Limited Mountain Cup. Actually, it's on 5 times because technically April 12th to 19th, it is Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and an Evolution Cup. So it is there as well if you want to play that there. And then it loops back again 2 times in May, Ultra League and Ultra League. And I missed where the special edition, yeah, there we go, right at April 19th, right after the full time there. Oops, right after the full there. April 19th, Great League, and a Weather Cup, which is Weather Cup. Is, let me just go down here. Weather Cup Ultra League Edition is 2500 CP, only Fire, Water, Ice, and Rock, and I've got that custom rankings coming up here. But for first, we will start with the Ultra League rankings. Okay, so Ultra League rankings are, here they are, based on PV Poke. There are some Pokemon that I would say you should prioritize first to build, and then there's others that we will get into lower down on this list here. So I don't even have a Registeel yet, and actually what I wanted to do here before we do that is let's get into custom battle here, because what I wanted to see is, I'm going to just make this a little smaller because it is seems to be quite large here, and I want to fit more on the screen here. Okay, so what I wanted to see is multi against, no, let's go to Ultra League level 50 first, because I am almost positive that I need a matrix here. I need Registeel with optimal IVs. So optimal IVs are 4, 5, and 15, which gets you to level 49. And what happens if you only have a Registeel but you get it with IVs of like, let's say 10, 11, 15, something like that, where you just got it from a raid? Still needs XLs, not as many. Is there a difference in the overall wins and losses here? Going across, you pick up 1 with Giratina Altered. You pick up 1 the other way, going with the Registeel, which is interesting. Oh no, it's not, because you win the attack. You win the mirror match. That it makes total sense. But otherwise, just that 1 matchup, and versus 1 tie. So a slightly higher average, 559 versus 550. But overall, this analysis, just quick and dirty, just basically says like you don't need it as much. So there are like, where does it come down? Like, so here in like the Trevenant matchup, you're going to live with like much more health with the better IVs. There's anything else that just jumps out at me here with just looking at the numbers quickly. So that Trevenant matchup is off. That happens often. So that could be something worth taking note. But otherwise, it looks like it's just pretty. You win, or you lose. So if you don't have like a re-rolled good IV Registeel, it does not look like it matters. So Registeel is just so strong because in the Ultra, it says Great League up top here, but it's Ultra League. Because it is so, in the Great League, it doesn't really one-shot a lot of things. It one-shots some things, but most of the time you still need 2 moves. That is the same for Ultra League. You're never really going to one-shot a lot of things, but it always takes 2. You have 2 nukes. With the Ultra League, you now have all that XL bulk, right? So same sort of concept of the Great League. You're fire. So this one's running Zap Cannon, Focus Blast. Either Focus Blasting everything, Zap Cannon, hopefully for lower their attack. It's bulky, it hits super hard. You got a lot of resistances to a certain extent, right? If you have a lot of flyers in this meta, You've got Cresselia as a great safe swap in this meta. You have, like, again, Charizard's more of a flyer. So some of these, there are a lot of answers to it to a certain extent, but like Jellicent and Tapu Fini, you can hit for super effective with the, and Walrein and Scrafty, right? A lot of these, even though Scrafty will counter power up punch you, there's a lot of things that you can hit super effective with either move, right? And that's why it's a great safe swap. That's why it's a good closer. That's why it's a good lead. Like, it's just so bulky. So is worth investing in. You need XLs. I have not invested yet. Pidgeot, yes, Pidgeot, in my opinion, is a must. It is sort of a Sims hero. Actually, I should have looked into the, actually I just did, that's right. So Registeel is 28 and 16, which is fine. Lose to your fighters, which is not surprising. Lose to your ground, which is not surprising. And then for the most part, you're going to beat everything else. Great for fairies, great for water, great for your poisons, like just darks, right? So you know what you're getting with Registeel. What do you gain with Pidgeot? So Pidgeot is sort of a Sims hero. So first of all, hardest answer for Trevenant. Let's just go down to Trevenant right away, because Trevenant has nothing to throw at you. It basically acts as a Noctowl of Ultra League, right? Great answer to those who don't throw anything at you, like the ghosts. It's great against grass. In neutral situations, you can still hit for the Brave Bird, like fighters in here. A Scav can't throw anything at you, right? So some of these are probably bait dependent. You just get lit up by steals, ice. Steals and ice are your main issues. Losing to Obstagoon, that's kind of crazy, but I guess Obstagoon is not a fighter. And I guess can it just counter Night Slash you? But for the most part, it is a Sims hero where you're gonna like bait the Brave Bird, hit them with the Feather Dance, lower their attack substantially, and then that. It is extremely strong because of that game you can play on the lead. You can lead it, and then if it's like a decent matchup and you just want to Feather Dance them right away, once something's sometimes 2 times lowered, it's very, very difficult for them to stay in. So it kind of forces them to go out. So you can do that, or you can play the game of like just Brave Birding and coming into like a safe swap there. So it's definitely one I would invest in. The number one Pokemon I would invest in if I were you is Giratina Altered. Does not need the IVs. I just use my one that I caught. It is so good. And this is what you like in this sort of thing. So there are like weaknesses in like ice and dark, right? There's nothing you can do there. And fairy, but even the fairies are like 334 and above and normal typings because you're running claw here. But it is an incredible safe swap. Oftentimes you can grab shields. Even in bad matchups, you're pretty good, right? So even though these are a lot of losses, you're not using this for the wins and the losses. There are great wins here, right? You'll get them against like Swampert. It's a great answer for the Cavalion Virizion core because you just like resist everything there. So it's dominate for those which are everywhere. Swamperts are everywhere. You're not seeing a ton of these anymore. Defense Deoxys is a great answer. Again, Defense Deoxys is one that you need a lot of XLs for, but it's a great answer for most things. And then even though there's a lot of losses here, right, you're not using it for its main wins and losses. You're using it as a safe swap. You're using it to draw out a dark if you want to use AB tail team, if you want to use balanced teams where you can just kind of grind there. So you can use Shadow Claw on it. You can use Dragon Breath on the lead. It just depends what you want to do. I think it's a great safe swap for this meta and one that I would prioritize building. Gliscor is not my top priority. Trevenant is my top priority. I have one built. It is extremely strong. Just pair it with 2 things that'll beat Pidgeot, right? And Darks, because you'll just get lit up there by those 2. And I guess Poison, because Poison resists the grass, but and Poison Dark resists both. So that's tricky. But for the most part, like I guess normal typings do resist the claw. But for the most part, like some of these big wins against the meta, like Registeel, you'll do well against fairies. You'll do well against Galarian Stunfisk. You'll do well against A Ninetales if it's running Charm. Cresselia, which was actually the face up. The Grass, Cobalion, Virizion, which is a core there. Tapu Fini, which is everywhere. Swamperts, which are huge. And these are like big wins, right? So, and Defense Deoxys, if you see that too, is just great. So definitely one worth prioritizing. Can Giratina and Trevenant play the same role to a certain extent? Yes, they can to a certain extent. If you only want to build one, I would prioritize Giratina because I think it's just all around better, bulkier. Doesn't hit as hard, obviously, but I would use it more. I would prefer, if I only had one, I prefer Giratina on my team just because how safe it is as opposed to Trevenant, which you just get like hard walled really quickly. But it's super good. Cresselia. So I built a Cresselia. It is a great safe swap as well. Just because like one of the things it's weak to is Dark, which you can hit for super effective with the Moonblast, right? And your main hardest loss here is Registeel, which again, you have nothing to throw at a Steel, or you have nothing to throw at a Fire either, because you only have Grass and Moonblast. But even like the Ghost, like you're losing, but you can like chip there. And then for the most part, it's pretty evenish, right? So it's definitely a safe swap I would build. It's probably the second safe swap I would build. I'd build Giratina as the first safe swap. But again, a lot of this meta, Swampert you take out easy. Tapu Fini, it's a great answer to the Virizion and Cobalion that you're seeing everywhere. Giratina, if you land, even with the Claw and Shadow Snake, if you land a Moonblast, you should be in good shape, right? So definitely one worth investing as a safe swap. So Giratina, in my opinion, is the best safe swap. Cresselia is a very close second safe swap, definitely worth building. Regirock, I don't know, it's not a priority for me. Like, I would rather focus on Registeel and I would rather focus on all these other Pokemon first. Cobalion's an interesting one because Cobalion is very dominant with a double kick and Sacred Sword. But there are a lot more, I find, hard losses and punishes now than before. So like Fire, you're just gonna get your Steel, right? So you're just gonna live by Fire. But you're also like your Steel, so you lose to the fighters, like hard losses against Toxicroaks, Deoxys. Even Jellicent now with Surf is going to do well against you because, again, Ghosts resist that. You would lose to Swampert. So there's your Ghost losses too. You lose to Swampert because of the ground. There's more fighters. You lose to, again, Ghost, Giratina, Cresselia as a safe swap with Psychic, right? So there are a lot of losses. If this was like 2 seasons ago, I would have said yes, 100% build. It's so spammy. You beat so many of these things. Because you're half Steel, it's great against ice, great against poisons, great against anything that takes super effective to fighting, like Darks, like big wins against the Darks, like Umbreon, Obstagoon here. Galarian Stunfisk, Walreins were everywhere a while ago, not as much now. Great answers to your ices. Like, so it does have a ton of play. Because there's so many losses here, and a lot of losses and things that you see a lot of. Like, I think you're going to see a lot more Jellicent this season. I think you're going to see, Swampert's always. Trevenant is up there always. Giratina is up there. Cresselia's up there. There's just so many tougher losses now. So if we're talking about like tiers of building stuff, it would be on my second tier, right? The first tier, for sure, Registeel, Giratina, Trevenant. Again, Trevenant is one tier, but if you can only build one, build Giratina, and Cresselia are definitely top tier. I would say Cobalion second tier. Even though Swampert is at number 10, I would say Swampert is a first tier because you're never really in a bad matchup. Well, I mean, like Grass. There's not much you can do about Grass. Outside of Grass, you're never in a bad matchup, right? So there's your hard Grass losses. And then other water Pokemon. But even like Tapu Finis, you can throw Earthquakes against. And if you bait here, like you're in a pretty good situation versus like Tapu Fini and stuff like that. And then Obstagoon and stuff like that, you just spam and spam in most of these situations, and a ton of wins here. So it's been one of the top Pokemon for a long time now. It is still a top Pokemon. If you have not invested in Swampert for Great League or Ultra League yet, you have been playing it wrong because they both deserve to be top ranked. I've gone over Gliscor twice. I don't think Gliscor is such a bait dependent Pokemon with the Night Slashes. So I think that's Sims Hero. So for me, it's not even second tier. It does have play, like if you want to just look at it, because it can land the Earthquake, but like, so you lose to ice because you're double weak to ice as a flyer and ground. So you get lit up by the ice, weak to water. But then there are a lot of wins you see down here, but like 100% against this Obstagoon matchup, you're going to have to bait a Night Slash. Oh no, I guess they fixed it so that you can just go straight Earthquake, but then you lose. Yeah, you lose the Obstagoon matchup if they shield the Earthquake, right? So that's a thing, right? And this Sims, so it says here, No, it says here you lose to Obstagoon. Okay. So I guess they fix the Sims. Because they shield up an Earthquake, right? So it is very bait dependent. So thank you, PV Poke, for fixing that up a bit. I gotta imagine there's still, maybe Registeel, you can just go straight Earthquake. Yeah, Registeel, you can just go straight Earthquake, but you just barely survive. See, a lot of these matchups are like, you could bait, but I would not. I should probably go Night Slash. Shamachamp, you're probably just okay with anyway. So it's not as bad of a Sims as it was before. Again, if I'm gonna take a flyer, I'm gonna take Pidgeot because I think it's just a more specific for a stronger thing. So Gliscor is like a good option B, but I've got to imagine Charizard's on here too. Yeah, as an option B. I like Charizard too as a plan B. So yeah, if you want to build a second flyer, Gliscor or Charizard, I wouldn't hate that. Steelix. Steelix is one of those where it's like so easy to get walled with the fighters, and other steals is the problem. So like steals against Escav, Empoleon's not all around as much, but Obstagoon is, Tapu Fini is, Registeel is, Scrafty is, Machamp, Clarence Stunfisk, Cobalion, like Swampert, and these are just like big losses. How do you lose to a fairy? I guess you're throwing only Dragon Tails, so that and this has close combat, so that makes sense. But now you lose to Jelson too. What are your wins? Your wins are against like even bulkier Pokemon. These are wins, but like So Steelix is so I guess your main wins are going to be against like Ghost because you can throw crunches, and Poisons because you resist it. But like, it's definitely not a must for me. I wouldn't even say second tier. It's more like third tier, quite honestly. Virizion, it's going to be second tier too. Just like it's a worse Cobalion just because it can get walled much harder against like Giratina, right? Because at least Stone Edge will hit for neutral there. Your Sacred Sword and your Grass move is not going to throw anything here. So it's just like really tough. So you can build it second tier in my opinion. So I was gonna say build Galarian Stunfisk again. If you have a Registeel, I would just build that over Galarian Stunfisk at this point. Jellicent, I think Jellicent with now Surf has picked up like 7 more wins. It's still gonna lose to like Darks and Grass and stuff like that, which there's not much you can do, and you still get outpaced by these normal typings. So there are a lot of losses, but it's just more. Your curve is not as bait dependent. The Surfs will still add up on a lot of these things, and you flip a lot of these matchups. I went over that last week, how you flip matchups in like the Charizard and the Muck and Galarian Stunfisk and a few others that you now flip with Surf. So definitely worth investing in if you haven't. I do think it's probably still just like a second tier Pokemon. And Tapu Fini is ranked so low. I honestly think it is one that I would make higher. So you're going to lose to the Grass and the Poisons. That's fine. Swampert, can they just go straight Earthquake? No, see, this is a bait of a... this is baiting Hydro Cannon. So let's look at the Zero Shield if they have to go straight Earthquake. I know they'll hit you, but not... Oh yeah, they can just go straight Earthquake and win. That's what I thought with Shadow. I don't think that... Oh, this is non-Shadow? This is non-Shadow. That's what I thought. They can just go straight Earthquake and take this matchup. Because that's why Swampert's a top tier. But for the most part, actually, there are a lot of losses here. I do think that it's better than the Sims is giving it credit for, in my opinion. There are a lot of wins. Again, anything it's Dark, Giratina with Dragon Breath, because you can hit the Moonblast. Again, anything Dark. See, there's Swampert with Mudshot, and that's how you win there. So the Sims kind of... Yeah, the Earthquake, I've played that matchup a few times. It's hit and miss, depending on... I think you take the double shield for sure. But yeah, so there are... It's tricky. I love using it. Personally, I've had great success with it. I think it's well-rounded. I think the Surge, you get to Surge pretty quickly. Moonblast is great coverage. The Sims are saying it's not worth it. I'm going to overrule the Sims because this is my ranking and say that it is probably in my top like 5 to 10 to build. So before I go down to like, I'll go down to like 50 to see what else to build. Shadow Walrein and Ninetales I think is probably worth building as well to have as your ice type Pokemon, or Auroras. I haven't built up Auroras. I think Auroras is very strong. I haven't built one up yet. But Auroras, Walrein, a Ninetales, same sort of play, same sort of win-loss overall. So I think any of those three are worth building as your main ice type, in my opinion. But if I was going to build like 5 Pokemon, it's funny because I'd say Registeel, but again, I don't have the XLs for it yet, so maybe that's why I haven't built it yet. But I build Pidgeot, I build Giratina or Trevenant, I build Cress as a safe swap, I would build Swampert if you have not built Swampert yet. And then I built Tapu Fini as my main 5 that I built. Secondary tier, Jellicent for sure. Any of Auroras, Walrein, or Ninetales I would build. Whatever one I didn't say up here. I forget if I said Trevenant, but yeah, I built Trevenant. And then yeah, Cobalion, Verzina. Cobalion over Verzina, in my opinion, is the second tier that I would use. Yeah, so those are the main ones I build. Let's just go to like level number 50 and below to see if there's anything on here that I would build. It's interesting because we said Defense Deoxys. Defense Deoxys is one of those, so I don't have the XLs for this or a good IV one. Defense Deoxys is one of those very, very tricky ones where it's like, there's so many ghosts. There's so many ghosts in Trevenant, Giratina, Cofagrigus, Steel where you can't throw anything. Another ghost in Jellicent, Darks and Drapion. You get outpaced by the Swampert because you really can't throw anything besides Psycho Boost. Cresselia, you just don't, your counters aren't going to do anything there. So there are a lot of losses here. I gotta imagine there's a lot of okay wins too here. The problem is some of these are like, you can't throw the Psycho Boost. And this is why I actually think Deoxys is worse in the Sims than it gets credit for. Because a lot of the time, in these sort of situations here, you can't really throw the Psycho Boost right away. Because that will, oh, you are throwing it in the Sims. But this lowers your attack, right? Substantially. So you lower attack, lower attack, lower attack, lower attack. So a lot of times in these matchups, you have to like build up to throw the Rock Slide or Thunderbolt first before you can then throw the Psycho Boost because you don't want to do that. But what I've seen in the past is a lot of times people just use Counter and Psycho Boost on the lead and just go Counter, Psycho Boost, bail to a safe swap. Come back in, Counter, Psycho Boost, bail into the next one. And that makes Defense Deoxys way more powerful. So it's not a must build for me, but I think it's way higher than, I think it should be higher ranked because I think how you use it in the one shield in a matchup is much different than how you would actually play it out in a matchup, in my opinion. Noctowl, again, you can build up an XL Noctowl. Gives you a little more coverage. The problem is it gets like 2300 CP, so just go Pidgeot if you have it because you can get to a level 50 Pidgeot, which is much better. Samurott, tricky. Like if you have, yeah, it's not bad in the Sims because Hydrocan is still a good hitting move. But and then because you have the Fury Cutter, you're great against Darks. So Mandibuzz, Crafty, Umbreon, like great wins against Darks and Psychics. So there are definitely some strong Pokemon here. Again, I would rather. So is this worth building? I think so. Samurott, is it like top 2 tiers? No, I think it's like a tier 3. And if I had it, if I needed a 3rd tier Pokemon, I would build Samurott instead. Dragonite, I think is underrated as well. It's just because it's just much worse version of Giratina, right? Because you just don't have the bulk that Giratina has. You do hit hard, but like the Ice and Fairy, which you did bad, but not super bad against with your Giratina, because you're half flying as well, you're now double weak to Ice as a dragon and flyer, so that just destroyed you there. And then these fairies are just like, you don't have a move to throw at fairy. Like at least with the Shadow Claw and Shadow Sneak, you can at least hit these for neutral. You are resisted everything here. And that's why it makes this very, very tricky. Cobalion. Is Cobalion just going to outpace you to double Stone Edge, or is this bait dependent? Yeah, so that's a bait of Sacred Sword. Let me see if baiting is off. So if baiting is off, you still lose, but it's much, much less, which is what I expected. But yeah, again, Tapu Fini, you have nothing to throw. Cresselia, you have nothing to throw. So Dragonite is just like, you can get walled too easy, but I've used ABB style team for Dragonite, and it was very strong. Because it's, once you get the first fairies and stuff out of there, if you pull it out with the Giratina, it's pretty strong overall. Plus it's like top, if Ultra League Premier comes back, is one of the best in Ultra League Premiers. So definitely worth investing in for Ultra League Premier at that. Shadow Machamp, again, is one of those more, I think it has way more play in Ultra League Premier than it does. It's such a wide range here, right? Getting destroyed by Ghost and Fairy is not, and Psychic is basically what you're seeing here. And then you'll probably just destroy Darks and normal typings and ice typings and steals, right? So these are big wins and big losses. So Shadow Machamp is one I've played with multiple times. It is one worth investing in. Just know that if you're going to use it, you need to build a team around it to deal with many, 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 many weaknesses in the Open Great League. Still has its play for sure, but you know, not as strong. I can't comment on Glaring Wheezing. I've had a couple people talk about Glaring Wheezing. Well, they talked about in specialty cups. I have not used it yet. I don't have anywhere near the XLs. Not a bad deviation. With the overheat, you can hit a lot of these things for good damage, and then you got good answers to like a lot of stuff in the meta in the back end here. Your ghosts, your darks, your Cobalions, your Tapu Finis, your fairies, your Giratina altered. Like a lot of people, like I haven't built it yet. A lot of people, so I can't like speak to it. A lot of people have spoken to it and says it's great. And same thing with Shadow Drapion. I don't have one built for Ultra League, but that is not a bad safe swap sort of. I keep calling it deviation because I think about standard deviations, but I forget what I've been out of school too long for what the word is here. But like bad against steals and Swampert and stuff like that. But as a safe swap, I can spam. Not bad. Why is it doing so bad here? Is it Aqua Tail running here? Yeah, you're running Aqua Tail and Crunch. So that's your trade-off. Let me look at this with Sludge Bomb. Okay, so that is a worse deviation. Worse than that. So yeah, so Aqua Tail is the right move. But like, yeah, it's okay. Again, I haven't used it, so I can't speak to it. But it's a nice answer to your ghosts as your main thing. But it's, again, I've gone 11 seasons without it, so I don't think it's a must. There's nothing else I can speak to down here that I've used constantly. Yeah, I haven't used any of these Pokemon. And even stuff like Gyarados. Like Gyarados is a beast in Premier, but I think it just does not have the bulk that you need. Not a bad sort of mountain there. But again, when your main losses are the main meta, Tapu Fini, Registeel, Ninetales, Cobalion, Stunfisk, Virizion, Walrein, like it's tough to play. Let's see if you get, even in like neutral situations, you just get like outbulked. Like Mandibuzz, Umbreons are just outbulking you. You beat Jellicent with the crunches, that's good. Again, you have crunch, so it's good in a meta that has so many ghosts and psychics to do that. And it's a great answer for Swampert too. So if you lock it on Swampert, you're gonna win there. But again, it's not even a tier. It's like a tier 3 to 4 for me. Surfetch I've used so many times, and I really, really like it. The win-loss record is not great. Again, when you're a fighter in a meta that's dominated by Ghost and Psychic, and has a bunch of fairies, it's very, very, very difficult to do. So that is why it is struggling in its matchups, and there's a lot of flyers too, right? So pretty rough. They will have some good wins against your steals. Even Registeel is barely a win, which is pathetic. But like Swampert, barely. I think that is, yeah, that's timing perspective, I think, as well. But again, normal darks, you're going to win, and ice, right? You're going to have the win. So it's, if you're going to build, if you don't have a Shadow Machamp, if you do not have a Shadow Machamp, I think Surfetched is an amazing second option to use. So I think that's enough for just the open Ultra League. Let's look at this. I haven't looked at this yet. It's a very, I always said the water is always so dominant in this meta. With this Weather Cup has been on so many times, and water is always so dominant in it. And it looks like the same scenario here. Jellicent, Swampert, Poliwrath. So I've used Poliwrath. I've used Poliwrath a few times. It's not bad. Let's look at Poliwrath in the open, because I think I've used it a few times. Let's learn how to spell Poly. Okay, down at 114 for Shadow, 138 for non-Shadow. Let's just look at the non-Shadow. Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch. I've used it before. It suffers from the meta, unfortunately, right? Ghost, Psychic, and Fairy is your main weak. Plus there's some grass, but that's whatever. And then you don't really have anything to throw at your waters either. So that's a little rough. But if you're running with, I'm surprised they're running it with Ice Punch and not Scald. But I guess Ice Punch is better for your coverage. Is it better for your coverage? Why aren't you running Scald? 19 and 25 versus, I guess this is maybe more bait dependent or more coverage. 21 to 23. Okay, so I guess you do pick up some. I guess there are enough flyers and stuff like that where Ice Punches will add up. But like Dynamic Punch for your like Registeel and stuff like that. So I have used it before. It's not a must. Like if I was just talking about Open Great League, this would be like a third or probably like a fourth tier, quite honestly. But fourth tier plus a top 6 in this cup, like if you want to invest in it and just test it out in Great League, I wouldn't hate it. Samurot's really been good in specialized cups for Ultra League. I wonder if that's the same. So it's rank 56. Yeah, I was about to say it's. Did I go over Samurott? Yeah, I went over Samurott because if you don't have a Swampert, build a Samurott. I already went over Samurott. Yes, Samurott is definitely worth one of us building, and it's going to be top 10 here. So worth investing in. Tapu Fini, Abomasnow. So the problem with the Abomasnow is it was so good, 30 and 36 here. I have a normal typing. So the problem is like it was so good for so long as the main ice type, and then Walrein came in, so it lowered that, and then Aurora's came in, so it lowered it even more. So I think a lot of people, and then a Ninetales is better now as a Shadow 2. So I think those three take priority, but if you don't have those three, 100% build up an Abomasnow, because even though you're weak to like fighting and rock, and you're gonna have a huge trouble against the steals, you're gonna have a lot of good matchups too. I guess obviously like the flyers, even normal typing, and you're very, very spammy, so you're going to beat these Charmers too. And then the Giratinas are everywhere, Trevenants are everywhere, Swampers are everywhere. So I've used it before on one of my teams. So if you don't have the top 3 ice Pokemon, I think 100% you should build up an Abomasnow. Pelipper, I've seen Pelipper. You probably need like all 50 XLs. No, sorry, not all 50. 296 XLs, because you probably need. It is ranked 35. I've gone against. It's so spammy. It's a great safe swap. Like look at that. Even these losses against the steals, you can still spam the Weather Ball. I think it lacks a bit because it's probably tops out at like 24. Yeah, 24 or 4. So it can't even get to like where it needs to be. But if you have the XLs, I think this is a great Pokemon as a safe swap in this meta, and will be good in the other meta. Again, I don't have the XLs and I don't have the Hundo. You need a Hundo for starters, and you need 296 XLs. So if you have those, yes, this is worth an investment. If you do not, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, and then you get to like, this is the problem with this meta. I'm not building a Terracon or Terrakion. Terrakion looks like how it pronounces it. I'm not building Terrakion when there are so many other Pokemon that I would use in open Great League. So this is not worth the single investment. Regirock is on here that you can also use in open Great League, so I don't hate it if you want to build that. And again, Gyarados already went over its kind of weaknesses. Walreign's on here, like I already said, built it. Shadow A-Slash will be the last one I look at here. Because I think it has some play, 82, 83. I was about to say, as a steel and ice, it's going to have great great and weak and super bad, right? Because you're double weak to fighting. So double weak to fighting is, oh, that is ugly. Ugly, 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 ugly losses. Put together with some decent wins here against like Flyers, Trevenant, other ice Pokemon, Cresselia, anything that can't hit you for anything. Cresselia, everything's resisted on the steel. Great against Giratina too. So definitely one that if you have extra, if you've built it before, use it. If you haven't built it, again, there's so many other steels and ice I would rather use, but it's not terrible. Anyways, 35 minutes. Ooh, this is long. Anyways, hope that helps. That would be my prioritizing for the Ultra League. I'll do one for Master League and then maybe one for Little Cup as well. So that is it. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.